All right, in this video, I want to talk a little bit through what the calculator can do for us. So we're going to analyze. I went to, and I'm using my phone, and if it's not as stable as normal, I'm sorry. It is what it is. Here we go. I pulled up the Dallas Maverick data, and I just Googled, and I found, here are the different players, and there's all this data. What I wanted to do is analyze the number of points they scored in the 2018-19 season. So I typed in this column right here, or I hoped to, and so there were 21 different players. So I typed it in. I went to, on my calculator, I'm in statistics here. So one thing I want to point out real fast is if you come over, one of the things that you can do is hit delete all, so I could clear out a whole list. I don't want to because I just took the time to put it in, but I will do that in a second. So then I can come back to here. So I typed in those 21 terms. Hopefully I typed them in correctly. If not, it happens. And what I can do is I can analyze this number. If I'm going to go to calculate, and then I'm going to come over to set. And so with this one, I just am analyzing list 1, and they each of those players shows up once. So what I'm doing is I'm going to try and figure out what's the average number of points scored by a player. I'm going to figure out what's the median number of points and that sort of thing. So the players are included in list 1, and they show up one time each. So then I can come here and hit one variable. And it talks me through a lot of cool stuff. One of the things that I would look at first before I even really keep going is this n value. That tells me the number of terms. And since on the computer I could see that I had 21, do you see how Ray is number 21? That tells me that I typed in things correctly. It just kind of helps me out. I mean, it doesn't tell me I typed in things correctly. It tells me I typed in the right number of things. This top number right here, this X bar, is the mean of your data. And so they're telling us that that's 414. We're going to talk about some of these other values later, but then the 5-number summary is the minimum, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the maximum. And all of this is given to me right here. So the median we know is the middle number, and then the Q1 is the median of the bottom half. And then the Q3 is the median of the top half of the data. And so from the min to the Q1 is the lowest quartile, the lower quartile. Then this is the second quartile, goes from Q1 to the median. The median to Q3 is the third quartile, and then the Q3 to the max is the fourth quartile. I don't know what all this is telling us. I don't really care. Okay, so there's the data that I know, the calculations that I need. I can then also say I could exit out again. And I can then do graph. And once again, I'm going to set up my graph to make sure. So right now it's doing a scatter plot. Well, I don't want it to do a scatter plot. I'm going to look at a box and whisker, which is this med box. I'm assuming that's median, and it's a box and whisker. Let's call it that. So when I change that, I want once again, I'm using list 1, and I want the frequency of each one to be 1. And then once I have what I want, I can hit exit and then graph. And it's given me that box and whisker. So you'll notice the smallest value there, and I think if I hit trace, there we go. I had to do shift trace or whatever. And so this lowest value was my minimum. I had a player right here who he got into one game, and I don't think he scored at all. So, but hey, he's on the team. I'm not even on the team. Okay, whatever. So then this one is the Q1. Notice it tells me that there. And so 25% of these players score in this range. And then here is the median. So now 50% score this value or less. Here's the Q3. And then here is the maximum. So notice this is pretty far. That's pretty... There's 25% of the data, but it's a wider spread on that. When we talk about the IQR, the interquartile range, we're going to take Q3 and subtract Q1, and that's the IQR. Okay, the other thing that might happen is I went to the data from the IB exams. This is the HL math exams from last year, I think, so that would be May of 2018, I'm guessing, whatever. So when I find this, what's happening here is we had this many people score a 1 and this many score a 2, etc. It looks like they do pretty well, but that's also because there aren't as many people that take the HL math test, which is another story entirely. But what I can do, I can use my calculator to help me, and I'm going to come here, exit. I'm going to delete all of that list, and now I'm going to do 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to put in the scores, but if all I did was take the run the data on this, it's not very interesting because there's a certain number, there's the frequency of each one. Reminder, if I were to find the mean, I would have to say, okay, well, there were 2,033 people that scored a 7, plus, well, how many 6s were there? There were 3,124 plus, and I'd have to keep going. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see that. I'd have to find the total number of points scored divided by the total number of people that took the test. So I'm using this times this plus this times this times this plus, I'd go all the way down. I was just too lazy to write it out. And then it would be divided by the total number of people. And that's how you'd find the mean by hand. To find the median by hand, I want to figure out, okay, how many are there total? What's half of that? Where does that, in what range does that fall? But here's the whole point of this video is to get you to see how to use the calculator. So I'm going to come through and hopefully type this in correctly. 3124, 3471, 5. Oh, I'm doing it backwards. No, I'm not. I was looking at the wrong thing. Okay, so I was trying to match this number with that number, and that's wrong, but I went from the top to bottom. Okay, so now 2, 1, 0. That's why I thought I was wrong. I was not. Yep. Okay, hang on. Okay, so hopefully I typed all that in correctly. And so hit exit. So I'm going to now come over here to calculate, but I'm going to set it up again where I want the numbers. I'm trying to figure out the average score. So I'd expect the scores only go from 1 to 7. So I need to now change, but there's a ton of people. There were over 2,000 people that got a 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my frequency to a list, and I want it to use at list 2. So what it's going to do is it's going to take the score that I got as my value, but then the frequency of that value to be list 2. So now when I exit out and I do one variable stats, notice this number changed significantly. Remember how we said that helps you know if you're doing the right thing? That if you add up all of these values, you should get that right here, that 14,000. So basically this is saying there were about 14,000 kids that took the HL math exam. And so then when I scroll down, the minimum was a 1, the Q1 was a 4. So 75%-ish of that passed the IB math exam. The IB, that's probably because if they were nervous about doing well, they didn't take it, but whatever. And so here's that different data. And when I can come out and do my graph, I want to set that one as well. And so it's still that med box, and then it's list 1, but now my frequency, I want to change that to list, where's 2? List 2. Okay, so now when I graph that, it looks something like that. Okay, so hopefully this showed you a few cool things on the calculator. Good luck. Practice, practice, practice.